La Asamblea escuchará a continuación
The Assembly will now hear a statement by Her Excellency Epsy Campbell Barr, Vice President and Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Costa Rica. May I request protocol to escort Her Excellency.
Tengo el honor de dar la bienvenida
I have great pleasure in welcoming Her Excellency Epsy Campbell Barr, Vice President and Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Costa Rica, and I invite her to address the General Assembly. President, I am very grateful to be able to address this Assembly as a female Foreign Minister and Vice President of the Republic of Costa Rica. I convey to you and to the distinguished representatives of all countries the greetings of the President, Carlos Alvarado Casada. My country is absolutely convinced that together we can build a different future with courage, with determination, imagining the impossible and striving to achieve it. The fact that today this Assembly is being presided over by a woman, the fourth to lead this forum in its 73 years of existence, is part of a new moment in history in which equality between men and women is galvanized with concrete action. Therefore, my country welcomes her election and congratulates her. President Carlos Alvarado Quesada formed a gender-balanced cabinet in Costa Rica for the first time in our history. The country now benefits from the talent, abilities, knowledge, and leadership of women in positions of power. We are grateful to the Secretary-General for the clear impetus he has given to achieving gender parity within the United Nations, and we reaffirm our commitment to continue supporting the specific measures proposed to achieve this aim. The economic empowerment of women is also of vital importance to ensure that they can exercise their autonomy, and their incorporation into the labour market significantly contributes, as evidence shows, to the economy, to families, to communities, and to society in general. Costa Rica is convinced that it is necessary to continue to progress in this arena, and therefore, together with the United Kingdom, we co-chair the Group of Champions for Women's Economic Empowerment. President, our country abolished its army 70 years ago. Since then, our defence doctrines have been founded on dialogue, negotiation between states, and on international law. This is an achievement that is truly cherished by the Costa Rican people, that we wish to share as we approach the bicentenary of our independence. The decisions that the members of our government face do not involve updating our military arsenals nor joining strategic military alliances. Costa Rica is convinced of the need to ensure sustainable development in its three dimensions: social, economic, and environmental. Costa Rica is convinced of the need to foster inclusion and universal access to opportunities, investing in education, health, and housing, with particular attention to populations in situations of vulnerability. Costa Rica is convinced of the need for democracy with a robust electoral system guaranteeing that no one can remain indefinitely in power. Costa Rica is convinced of the need to protect human rights with a modern legal system bolstered by advanced international treaties and inspired by the needs of those who have suffered discrimination and prejudice. Costa Rica is convinced of the need to ensure individual freedom, protecting the right to expression, to communicate, and to be informed. Costa Rica is convinced of its desire to be a party and a part of the community of nations, placing trust in the protection of international law, the rules of coexistence, and avoiding any provocation of other countries. Therefore, the United Nations, the multilateral organization par excellence, occupies a special place in the heart of Costa Ricans. Some protest against what they refer to as interference from UN bodies, and others refuse to pay their financial contributions and dues. Others question their institutions or ignore their agreements. Costa Rica, for its part, confirms its belief for the need in the organization, which is strong, efficient, streamlined, transparent, committed to sustainable development, dialogue, peace, human rights, and the upholding of the norms of international law. But this is not only the case for Costa Rica, but also for many other countries for which the UN represents the last glimmer of hope. We must not let them down. President, Costa Rica condemns terrorism and violent extremism which leads to terrorism. Women and girls suffer the greatest consequences, the effects of which are sometimes indelible. Peace building must be a sustained effort. We firmly believe in fostering a culture of peace through the promotion of justice, democratic participation, human rights, and education. Therefore, we reject all forms of violence and we recognize the important work of preventing the causes of conflict. Since 2017, Costa Rica has been proud to be a part of and feels a great sense of responsibility in forming part of the group of countries that contribute on the ground under the banner of the United Nations. My country is pleased that Costa Rican female police officers are participating in their capacity as international observers in the United Nations mission in Colombia. We recognize the efforts of this mission to incorporate and mainstream a gender equality-based approach. We appeal for an end to impunity from the most serious crimes. We reaffirm our backing for the mandate of the International Criminal Court, and we appeal for those who have decided to withdraw to come back to the cause of international criminal law. We firmly believe that the court is legitimate. It is a tool of international justice, and it must be strengthened. Because victims deserve justice, above all, when their national systems are not able to provide it. Likewise, it is important to reiterate that sexual violence is unacceptable at all times. It is, however, particularly concerning when we see its widespread use as a tactic for terror and a weapon of terrorism and war, where it is used as one of the most cruel and terrible forms of social coercion, used as a strategy to control and intimidate entire communities, affecting in the deepest sense the dignity and autonomy of persons. The cases of sexual exploitation and abuse leave indelible marks on the lives of peoples. We support the zero tolerance policy in this regard, and we reiterate our condemnation of the abuses committed by staff of this organization which harm its credibility. It impedes the mandates and builds excuses for those who wish to destroy multilateralism. President, we welcome the Panmunjom and Pyongyang declarations, and we call for their effective implementation and complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. We also express our support for the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action with Iran endorsed by the Security Council. Moreover, we welcome the historic peace agreement between Eritrea and Ethiopia. Once again, we stand united with the international community, calling again for the lifting of the blockade against Cuba, which has gone on for too many years, affecting the abilities of its populations to generate development and prosperity. President, Costa Rica dreamed to be a country without an army, and for 70 years that has been a reality. We were also at the forefront of the adoption of the Arms Trade Treaty, and today we promote its implementation. Now, Together with a group of states and organizations, civil society organizations, we are imagining a world without nuclear weapons. For our country, the only way to guarantee that nuclear weapons are never used again under any circumstances is through their full elimination. With the adoption of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the international community decided that legally binding prohibition of these weapons is a fundamental contribution to achieving this aim. It is with profound conviction and a sense of ethics that today we call on all countries to sign and ratify this historic treaty. President, Costa Rica cannot nor will not be indifferent to the suffering and uncertainty of those who we believe to be our brothers and sisters. Since April, we've expressed our concern at the worsening situation of institutions and the systematic erosion of human rights in Nicaragua, as has been noted by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. The selective repression, intimidation, and criminalization we have seen there have undermined one by one the freedoms of its population. We should also note that the grave situation in this country has claimed several hundred human lives. As a consequence of that, in our country we have seen an increase in migratory flows and applications for refugee status. We have responded in an orderly, responsible way with solidarity, prioritizing protection, respect, dignity, and the security of persons. But of course, Costa Rica cannot bear this burden alone. The situation in Nicaragua is not sustainable. Dialogue remains suspended for what already seems to be an indefinite period. The government has expelled the mission of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. The crisis in this country has the potential to escalate with a direct impact on the stability and future of development in Central America. Costa Rica reiterates its belief that only dialogue between all sides with a serious agreement on a calendar for democratization can be the solution to the conflict that is afflicting our brother country. Today, we ask the international community and the Secretary General to participate through preventive diplomacy and mediation in light of these grave events. When it is a matter of the lives and dignity of peoples and of their ability to live free of fear and misery, silence makes us accomplices. Therefore, Costa Rica is speaking up. We reiterate our concern at the situation in Venezuela, the defiance of the rule of law and of Venezuelans' institutions, as well as violations of human rights in that country. Costa Rica has consistently supported the international community in its efforts in this regard, including those promoted this week in the Human Rights Council in Geneva. We reaffirm our commitment to contribute to overcoming the grave political, economic, social, and humanitarian crisis in this country through a peaceful and negotiated outcome under international law. President, this year will be of particular importance in achieving consensuses which will allow us to achieve a global framework for cooperation so that we at least achieve a safe, orderly and regular migration through the adoption of a global compact on migration and another for refugees. Costa Rica particularly welcomes this possibility. Only with ongoing coordination and cooperation, including towards those countries that responsibly receive migrant flows and flows of refugees, particularly where these are developing countries, can we manage human mobility in a way in which it can boost its positive effects. It's crucial that we deepen our thinking about human mobility, which is a very relevant global and complex phenomenon. This must become one of the priorities on the international agenda. We need a shared comprehensive, long-term view of migrants and refugees, reflecting sovereignty, but also reflecting shared responsibility in terms of governance and solidarity. Let us ensure that we build a world in which diversity, identity, and culture are seen as a source of wealth and growth. President, Costa Rica calls our attention to the International Decade for the People of African Descent, which began in January 2015. In 2020, we will take stock of progress of the first half of this decade, but we have not made enough progress. We need the necessary resources as mandated by the General Assembly to take specific measures to recognize the contributions of this population and to respect, protect, and ensure the realization of their fundamental rights. Moreover, Costa Rica welcomes the adoption of the Decade of Family Farming. This aims to improve the working and living conditions of family farmers and to contribute to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Family farming is related to the production and consumption in a sustainable manner of food and to our population's cultural events. We invite all countries to act, both at a national and international level, to implement the aspirations of that decade. President, it is crucial that we guarantee our meeting of the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda. The administration of President Carlos Alvaro Quesada is committed to the National Compact for the SDGs signed in 2016 by the public sector, business sector, workers' organizations, civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, social organizations, and local governments. Costa Rica recognizes the comprehensive, universal, transformative, and multidimensional nature of these goals. We believe it is crucial that to achieve the 2030 Agenda, we fully take account of the multidimensional nature of poverty and ensure a thorough response of the international community and the United Nations systems to ensure that middle-income countries can continue to have access to funding to guarantee that we close the structural gaps that persist and hamper our path towards sustainable development. Today, we are working on an innovative, decisive, committed decarbonisation plan with a long-term view and immediate activities that need transformative efforts in our society. The plan identifies a series of technological transformations such as efficient and renewable public transport, a fleet of zero-emissions vehicles, integrated management of waste and low-emissions provisions, agri-food systems that are highly efficient and that generate low-carbon foodstuffs, a model of livestock development that is resilient and competitive based on productive efficiency, and an increase in forestry coverage and ecosystem services on the basis of nature-based solutions. The decarbonisation of our society is the great project of our generation. Costa Rica aspires to become a laboratory in the deep-seated decarbonisation process in the global economy. Just as we once abolished our army, today we will be abolishing our dependence on fossil fuels. We have decided to do everything we can with the cooperation of everyone. We will succeed. In this regard, Costa Rica invites all member countries to participate in a new initiative, the Coalition for Everyone. This coalition seeks to promote the integration of human rights and gender-based language in multilateral environmental agreements and environmental financial mechanisms in a coordinated and consistent way. Moreover, this week we signed the Escazu Agreement. This is a regional agreement on access to information, public participation, and access to justice in environmental matters in Latin America and the Caribbean. This innovative international instrument, whose negotiation process was chaired by Costa Rica, is a contribution from our region to environmental democracy and to building a more sustainable and inclusive world. President, great transformations must not wait. We can be part of a new enlightened generation of innovative, committed people with an inspiring vision of our potentials as a society who have decided to promote a positive global transformation. Now is the time to forge a more sustainable, fairer, freer, and more inclusive future. Costa Rica dares to think that all nations in the planet can share these aspirations. Irrespective of that, you can count on the full support of Costa Rica to work in that direction with whomever is ready to believe that we are obliged to hand over a better planet to forthcoming generations. President, it is true that we have seen national and global events that appear to demonstrate setbacks in peace, human rights, and even in areas that might seem contrary to sustainable development. But this must not make us lose hope. As one era dies, another is born. At the moment, we are seeing the death of the moment of history, and it is time to celebrate young leaders around the world moved by rights and by building better societies. Today, we have a committed, passionate youth who renounce often their own comforts to promote and protect the rights of others. We have called this generation the Enlightened Generation because they protect the best from the past, the best achievements of humanity, the commitment with the environment, society, peace, and well-being. This is a generation that looks to the future without fear, that stands up for a new world without weapons, without violence, for the environment, for peace, for human rights, for sexual diversity, against any form of discrimination and in favour of a better world. The Enlightened Generation, without doubt, will change the world. Thank you very much.
En nombre de la Asamblea General,
on behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank Her Excellency Epsy Campbell Barr, Vice President and Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Costa Rica. The Assembly will now hear a statement by His Excellency Sharma Oli, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal. May I request protocol to escort His Excellency?